Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because we have somebody on the show today who is really going to help us do something that we must do. Yes, must do. So pay attention, okay? Nir Bashan was born in Haifa, Israel, and raised in Los Angeles, where his earliest memory is finding a parking spot at the supermarket. You can remember it like it was yesterday. Growing up, Nir could be found tinkering and pulling apart just about everything in the house. Nir's first business was going door-to-door washing cars in Los Angeles during the early 80s. It set up a lifetime of understanding how to be creative and to be successful in business. In his early career, Nir spent a lot of time in recording studios across Los Angeles. At first, he worked with local punk bands, but soon thereafter started working with famous hip-hop artists and musicians. Nir is a Clio award-winning and Emmy-nominated writer and founder and CEO of the Creator Mindset, where he has spent the last 2 decades working on a formula to codify creativity. And it turns out that's the same type of creativity that can be used in businesses to impact the customer experience. His many clients include Microsoft, JetBlue, and the NFL Network, where he helps people become more creative with actionable tools that anyone can use by conducting workshops, keynote talks, and consulting. His formula is found in the Creator Mindset, 92 tools to unlock the secrets to innovation, growth, and sustainability. Nir has taught thousands of leaders and individuals around the globe how to harness the power of creativity to improve profitability, increase sales, boost customer service, and ultimately create more meaning in their work. Nir lives in sunny Orlando and is married to his college sweetheart, and they have a young son that he loves more than life itself.
There we go.
Thank you for... are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am. Let's go.
All right. Now, okay. So now I've given my Legion a little bit about you, but I think it'd be very helpful if you're going to share with us what you're going to help us solve today and how that impacts the customer experience.
So I'm going to help you solve the creativity gap that exists in businesses today, especially in customer service, where we are so busy thinking with the analytical mindset that we forget that we are all born with this amazing creativity to put out in the world. That's what I'm going to help people. That's what I'm going to help solve today.
Well, and you actually say that one of our modern problems, is that we are overusing that analytical mind. So if you could just elaborate on that a little bit more.
Sure. So the brain is separated into 2 hemispheres, right? There's roughly some crossover, but one side is dedicated to creativity and one side is dedicated to the analytics. And something very interesting happened about 70,000 years ago. We had a woman named Harriet, and she was a cave woman, and she was being attacked by a beast far larger and smarter than she was. Life expectancy back then was like 20. I mean, you were like a great grandma at 20, right? And so she was being attacked, and, it was flooding, and it was a dark and stormy night, right? And so as the water started flooding in her cave and the beast was seconds away from, snatching away her life, she had the world's first creative idea, Jim. She took a stick that was nothing but a hiking thing, and she took a berry picker that was nothing but a thing to pick berries with, and she put the sharp edge on the end of the stick, and she managed to stave off the beast. And that was the birth of creativity in humankind. And so immediately she went to the village, shared it with everybody, and it became this wonderful altruistic thing. Fast forward to today, we are all born creative. It was the single reason we're still alive. There is no other reason humanity has made it this far other than the fact that we were able to be more creative than those forces trying to kill us. And so what do we have today? We have a society and a world, and I've studied this across the world, all in my book, that values analytics instead of the very thing that kept us alive. And so we have overdeveloped that spreadsheet logic and, analytics and looking at the quarterly reports and all of this stuff. And I'm guilty of all of this, having run many companies for other people, having run my own company. I'm very guilty of these things. And I have learned over the years to recognize how important creativity is, and not to eliminate analytics, but to help balance the mind and to operate our potential at 100%, not just 50% of analytics, but to operate our mind in a holistic and wonderfully human system. And what you get when you operate with creativity is empathy. You get listening. You get all of these wonderful customer service skills that everyone says, oh, you can't teach these things. Oh, you either have it or you don't. Well, it turns out that you do have it. You were born with it. But you need to shift your mindset from analytics to creativity to help balance it so that these wonderful tools of creativity, which are all free, Jim. All of them are free. They cost zero. It just takes a shift of mentality. It just takes the will to do it in order to become more creative in our day-to-day work.
Okay, so I think what you just explained right there is one of the things that you mentioned in the book. When you refer to it, you say about correcting the way the brain has been functioning. And then you also talk about the whole education process, especially in secondary education, where you mention how colleges and universities are not teaching this. So I see design schools and I see, centers for innovation, at the college and university level. So how are they not teaching this?
So most business schools today are operating on a logic that is 50, 60, 70, some cases 100 years old. Yes, there are some innovation centers. Yes, there are some that you've mentioned. Amy Edmondson runs one at Harvard that's really, super advanced. She's doing something there, exploring the creative side that is not traditionally done. But Jim, they're the exception. They're not the rule. They are, less than 1% of 1% of the schools out there. So there is a slight transition that is happening, but we need it to happen at a greater pace. We will never cure cancer if we're thinking analytically alone. We will never put a woman on Mars if we're thinking analytically alone. The engineering field, the medical field, everything needs to get reinforced with a sense of creativity in order for humanity to reach its potential.
Okay, now that makes sense to me because I had Jeff DeGroff, who is a professor at the University of Michigan, who wrote a book about innovation and talks about what you refer to in regards to that being that small number. He also really started mentioning these people by name who were part of that 1%.
Isn't that amazing? It's that small.
Yes. And to me, it was like, really? This has come from one of the people, but you're validating his point. So I would highly also recommend anybody listening to this episode, go listen to Jeff DeGroff, his episode as well, because they have definitely fit in very well together. Because here's the thing, when you start talking about innovation, where is the start and the foundation and the building blocks of innovation? It's in creativity. You have to be creative in order to be innovative. I mean, it's not a parallel universe here. It's a consequential universe.
That's right.
In my thinking, in order for innovation to take place.
That's right. Yeah, you have to be. So the innovation that we're all looking for in customer service or in just about every field needs to come from somewhere. And that impetus comes from our soul. Our human experience is rooted so deeply in creativity, yet we choose to not go there and we choose to not use that. Why? I have a million excuses. I've worked with people from manufacturing to engineering, and the excuses are, I'll give you some of the most popular ones, right, Jim? It's way too out there, Nir. I don't play an instrument. I'm not an artist, or it's going to be really expensive, or somebody's going to laugh at me. I swear, I'll tell you, I've worked with people researching cancer. And, at first it's a very polished, my research deals with molecules and enzymes and studying, and so you kind of have a conversation, and soon thereafter you say, oh, you have an idea about this. Have you followed up? They're like, no, they're going to laugh at me. And these are smart, far smarter than me, human beings that have dedicated their life to something. Yet, what happens? They go to school, right? They go to grad school, then, doctor's PhD school. Now they're in debt to the tune of $500,000. They go work, start at the bottom, work their way up. They have a family, they have kids at home. And this person, she's not going to take the risk. And you know what? I can't blame her, Jim. She's not going to take the risk to go out there and go on a limb into some batshit crazy idea because she doesn't want to lose the establishment that she'd set up, the history, the publication. She's, peer reviewed in 300 publications. And why would I take that leap of faith? But I promise you, sitting around the dinner table at night, having a glass of wine, sort of away from the limelight of medicine or whatnot, I promise you the ideas there are incredibly creative. And those ideas can solve problems for humanity, but they're not acted upon. And I've dedicated my life to getting those problems to actually, the solutions, those creative solutions, to actually being applied to problems at work.
Well, you unloaded a whole lot right there.
You like that?
I tell you, because,
at least you can't say that I'm boring.
Well, really, let's peel that back down. A lot of it has to do with the 12 things that you keep bringing up throughout the book that we, have to have really some conscious thought around in order. That's really impeding and preventing our ability to be more creative and act. So let me go ahead and read those because I think it's critically important. So these are 12 principles that that you need to continually address. Okay. It's creativity's unlikely personality traits, the virtues of listening, the importance of the little victory, the value of making mistakes, art in the ego, character counts, the 4 P's that you need for growth, the disease of self-doubt, comfort, computers, and the multitasking myth, how to champion the good idea, the creator mindset guide to crisis, and the complacency conundrum. Okay, so we got 12 of them. Needless to say, we can't cover them all on this particular podcast. So for me, I always start thinking about rank, order, and importance. Can we discuss maybe the top 2 in that list? It's like, hey, you've got to knock these out. They've got to be one of the areas that you start, first, or that you're going to be working on longest. If you can kind of give context around those top 2 that come to mind.
Sure thing. I think really important, especially in the customer service community and industry, is listening. Creatively applying listening is something that is easy to talk about, yet it's seldomly done. Listen, I've run $250 million advertising agencies with, hundreds of employees and leadership teams and this and that. And I've sat in a room with all of my leadership team there, giving briefs on particular accounts or opportunities, threats, that kind of thing. And I literally, Jim, I'm embarrassed to admit, was on my phone half the time, not listening, because I was just waiting to talk. It's unbelievably embarrassing to admit, but it is absolutely true. And the amount of creativity that I left on the table because I was so busy believing that what I knew was more important than what my team was telling me was a shame and completely not okay. And today I listen far more than I talk. I know this is a podcast and it's a little weird, but something your listeners can do today to become more creative is to start to listen. Listen to what your customers are telling you. Listen to what your coworkers are telling you. How are they telling you this? Today we're in back-to-back Zoom meetings, right? How is something expressed? We have cameras so we can see each other. How that is expressed is sometimes more important than what is being expressed in the first place. I just read an article that, what's his name put out? It's not Daniel Pink. It's, God, I forgot the name, but the important part was that they were talking about reviews, right? It was in Harvard, the Harvard Business Review, and they were talking about reviews online of products, 1 star to 5 star. And the most interesting part was that if you get a bad review, it's not necessarily bad. And 5-star reviews people ignore because they think they were paid off or something like that. So it's amazing when you really listen and you understand what is going on. You create a sense of empathy that we do not have enough of. We do not have enough of empathy in our businesses today to understand and truly understand what the customer experience is, what the business to business experience is. We are so bad at relationships, and we are so bad at creating a back and forth between two people, two products and services, two communities together, that we are leaving a lot of creativity on the table. It's something that we can do today. We need to stop talking as much and start listening way more.
Okay, when you say that, I start thinking of tactics and behaviors and things like that. And the reason I say that is, for me, I've tried to be more in tune to asking the question when people say things that have some intensity to it. Like, that was terrible. Well, what do you mean by terrible, right? Because what you deem as terrible may not be what I deem as terrible. And really, it's the listening and then also trying to go for that clarity. I think those two need to go together. And so questions are your bridge to connect the confusion, or to get over the confusion, I should say. So the listening has a whole lot of more depth to it than just its simplicity in sound. Active listening is an important emotional intelligence attribute and competency that we have to build. Empathy is one of those as well. So all of these things really get into what I think ultimately what you're saying here is connect better with humanity and build that stronger relationship.
Yes, I think that the relationships in a sales environment has completely gone AWOL. So what has happened is, Jim, the economy has completely changed from the way it used to be even 5 years ago. We used to have, and what's taught in business schools is, product or service A finds customer or buyer B, they transact and the relationship is over. Nothing could be further from the truth. Nothing. And it's a great, great shame. Why? Because we're losing the opportunity to really understand how our new economy works. Product or service A can connect with occasional browser J, and that can go to V can go back to E, and then maybe at B it creates a sale, but maybe not. There is so much complexity today in the economy of how a product or service is consumed by the consumer, what they're paying for, how they're paying for it, how things are priced, that this is the best time possible to be alive, to be in the West, to be in the United States, which is the God's gift to capitalism and free enterprise. The system that we practice here is the best system the world has ever known, Jim. It has brought more people around the world out of poverty, out of abject poverty, than any system in the world. Why? It's because our product or service A affects somebody living in some country that is, J or E or whatnot, and there is money to be made at different portions of the strata, and it unites us and brings us, the entire world, to a higher standard of living. So my impetus is to make free enterprise because of the altruistic benefits that it has. Just like when Harriet ran into her village and shared the stick, so is our creative world affected when we're able to use creativity in our day-to-day job. I work with a lot of professionals who tell me, Nir, I work at a call center, right? How am I going to affect the global economy? How am I going to affect, any of that? And I tell them something very important. And that is this: when you are using creativity principles, listening, and some of the others that you've discussed, Jim, when we use those principles, we affect somebody in a way that we can never quantify, right? We can't look at KPIs. We can't look at a spreadsheet. It's a relationship between two people. We have the ability to affect that person on the other end of the line in a way that we never know. We just don't know. They could have been in a car accident an hour before. They could have had some family loss. They could have had, something terrible happen to their brother or sister or kids or whatnot. And the way that you treat them with a bit of respect, with a bit of empathy, with a bit of listening can make a consequential difference in that person's life. And then they can go on in their career or their product or service or whatever it is that they do and improve the world just a little bit better and a little bit more as they go through it. And how dare you say that you don't have the power to affect people? How dare you say you can't use creativity to make the world a better place? We all can. We were all born with it. It's a choice. We have to choose to use these principles, which are really just a shift in mentality. They're free. They cost absolutely nothing. That shift in mentality can really make the world a better place.
So you went down the path, you started with listening and went down to this global impact that listening can deliver. And I think it's really important because in the contact center and customer experience space, there's technologies out there that people, are not aware of that will help with the whole listening piece. And analytics will allow us to listen to a much greater degree to pull out some of those things so that we can impact globally, including the organization. So it's process and it's profit related. It's not just a quality thing. And that's why we created the speech analytics masterclass. And, for those listening that want to understand how to listen better to experience, you need to take that class. It's really important. Okay. So we talked about listening, that being one important one. What's our second one?
So the other one that I really like, and this is something that leaders can institute in their leadership team and spread it through the organization. And this is somebody that, who's a professional just trying to get to the next level can implement. Now, it's called the little victory. We are so busy making plans with our lives, right? And John Lennon said that life is what happens when we're busy making plans. So, I'm like you, Jim. You're a very successful entrepreneur. I've read up about you, and you're a really successful guy. I'm sure some of your listeners are really successful too. And we've all sat around and we've made 1 year, 3 year, 5 year projections where we want to be and stuff like that. But life is what happens when we're busy making these types of plans. I'll give you a really great example. There was an ice cream machine salesman many years ago whose construct was analytical. He was volume. We're going to sell a bunch of machines. I'm going to get on the phones and work it, and we're going to sell a bunch of machines. And like every single analytical only business, the curve starts to rise and rise and rise. But at some point, it flattens out. Usually that's when I get called in, when it flattens out, when I consult. What's going on? Why aren't people buying the double crust cheesy meat lovers pizza anymore? Or why aren't people buying my ice cream machine? And very shortly thereafter, it starts to crash where all hell breaks loose very shortly thereafter. So this kind of happened to this guy, and he noticed there was a restaurant in California that kept ordering machines. So he had a creative idea. He said, I'm going to go down there and check it out. He went, there was a line out the door, an hour wrapped around the block. And he finally got to the counter and he had the best cheeseburger he's had in his entire life. And the guy's name was Ray Kroc and the restaurant was McDonald's. So had he have stuck to selling ice cream machines, who knows? That was his analytical goal. That's what we're all taught. Stick to your 3 years, stick to your 5 year. But he chose instead to listen to the little breadcrumbs along the way that might have shifted us in a different direction. Now, I beg your listeners, what in your life, what in your career or in your business has been happening that's going great, right? That you're just ignoring because you're like, that's not serious. I need to stick to this path. I need to go here. I don't need to pay attention to that. Yet, if you pay a little attention to that, it might take you on a slightly different journey. And that slightly different journey is creativity, trying to get out. That's the DNA of who you are, who your product or service is, trying to get out to guide you along to the journey you need to be on instead.
Okay. So I want to really kind of flesh that out a little bit, because what you said right there, that is your path to disruption. Because when you look at all the studies, you talked about research and studies and things like that. One of the studies that's vitally important for us to always remember is that it's your strength that you can accelerate and improve at a significantly greater rate than what are your weaknesses. So if you have a particular area that is smooth and going well, like Nir's talking about, you should not ignore it. You should amplify it.
And there's so many people that ignore it, and I don't get it. It is not rocket science, right? It is, I am a distributor in this business, and I have a great relationship with this vendor. We get along. We understand each other's businesses. There's a natural connection there. It's pick up the phone and make that connection. Like, I don't understand. Like, you've spent a lot of money having me come in there to tell you to just, hey, that's where you guys should go. And I get it. Listen, I've been in business my whole life, right? I started washing cars door to door when I was 9 years old in Los Angeles, getting the door slammed in my face, getting stiffed. We would wash a car and just spick and span. 3 hours later, we'd go knock, give the keys back. Here you go, ma'am. Here you go, sir. Your car's done. And they'd look at it, look at me, and slam the door. I was 9 years old. Right. And I learned amazing things from that experience. And I also learned that sometimes I got the blinders on, right? I'm like, got to get, to the next level, got to get the P&L sheet, got to turn this account into 0.3% more profit from the revenue. I get it. And sometimes it's good to have outside help, but look at what you're doing today. Look at what you're doing in your business right now. Look at it creatively and see if there is natural little path that might be more beneficial or might be, gold to you, then you should take them.
Well, this has gone so well, and you provided so much more depth than what I read in these 12 principles. So I got to ask for one more, Nir.
One more principle. Sure. Okay. So I talk a lot about the unlikely attributes of creativity. And I've gotten this has been controversial. So I get emails on this and such where people people are telling me, Nir, you're kind of crazy. How does humor, empathy, and courage, some of the most important creative principles? Well, one, humor activates a part of the mind that allows you to look at a situation in a different way. It might not be funny to you, or, we're not really looking at something funny particularly, but we're looking at a different approach to a problem. So when you use humor, something your listeners can do today, look at a problem that's going on in your business. And instead of looking at it the same way, which is, oh crap, negative, this is going to be bad. And this sort of thing, shift the paradigm and find something positive in what's going on. If you're able to find something positive in that problem, boom, you've activated creativity. And your mind goes, oh, if that's positive, then maybe I could spin it this way, and then so on and so forth. And you get really excited and you're able to use creativity to solve the problem. So humor is an incredibly important thing because it takes pessimism and makes it into optimism. And as soon as you're able to do that, you activate creativity. Empathy, incredibly important. It's part of that listening. It's part of understanding not only what somebody else is going through, but literally putting yourself in those shoes. Understanding that your product or service is a integral part of somebody else's life is really important. I'll give you an example. I'm a Porsche aficionado. I've had their cars for almost 15 years. I'm a serial buyer to the point where they call me and they tell me, Nir, we've got a new program. I said, what's going on? They're like, okay, we're charging a flat fee. You can come to the dealer, take whatever car you want, keep it as long as you want, just make the monthly payment. Plus, we're going to pay your insurance. I'm like, this is the best thing ever, and they've realized that they have a sense of empathy with their customer and their brand, that they know that, people want to drive these different cars. They want to do and have different experiences. So empathy is not only just listening and, really feeling what somebody else is going through. That's part of it. Empathy is also understanding the commercial value of applying a different billing model or a different billing, a different engagement proposition, which is incredibly important. Then finally, I talk about courage, because you have to have the courage to take this leap of faith to go on this direction. We talked about the engineer earlier working for NASA, right? Or SpaceX. She really wants to, at her dinner table at night with her engineering friends, right? She, over a glass of wine, she said, here's my napkin, and we do a solar wing, and this thing is like 8 miles long, and it spreads out and it catches the rays and it'll move us to, with the speed of light. And her friends go, wow, that's crazy. Do you really think it worked? Yes, because we need to do this, and the other thing, and it will work. But she will never have the courage. And we lose, Jim. We all lose. We lose because of this. She will never have the courage to go and actually develop that plan and pitch it at work and back it up and deal with all the naysayers. Oh, that's stupid. Oh, why would we do that? You're risking your reputation. She would never do that. She is like 99.9% of people out there. She will not take the risk. So you have to have the courage to put all these things together in order to be really, really creative and really successful with creativity.
What you just said to me has right there has some personal connection for me. Last night, sitting at the dinner table with my daughter, who is senior year in high school, and thankfully she goes to private school, and during this COVID stuff, they're actually been going every day.
Good.
Fantastic. They're doing a really good job over at Greensboro Day School. Thank you to all of you over there. And she was talking about how she was upset because she didn't get an award from her volleyball team because it was their end of season. And I said, well, Ava, I said, you're a rebel. You speak your mind. You do your own path. You try to do it respectfully until people disrespect you. I said, and those are, first of all, unusual for a young female to have those traits. And then also, those traits will never get you an award.
Yeah.
I said, and that's something you're going to have to accept. It's a harsh reality. I said, however, they will serve you well, but you just need to know that people aren't going to pin an award on you when you have skirmishes and are going against what they think. And I think that's a problem for many of us, is that, when you talk about the 5 fears, even at the senior level, most of them have to do with not wanting to make a mistake, not wanting to look stupid. I mean, it's all those things that you had mentioned that are fear-based that prevent us. And you know what? It's not just at the top level. That's I don't want to look like an idiot. I don't want to make a mistake. And I think that's part of that creative and analytical thinking thing. I think that's one of the things that we stripped out, because a creative and person who's, really exercises those muscles, they're like, well, I don't care what you think, man. I'm having a good time. Right.
Right.
You can tell a story about the young kid and the butcher paper and the crayons, and you were talking about that story when you were in kindergarten. Is that that's what creativity really is I don't care what my flower looks like, right?
That's exactly right.
Making that flower, I ate a crayon in the process, but you know what? I had a good time.
Right.
We all did, making our own flowers. But as we get through our education system, there's been studies on this as well, is that we strip that creative thinking out of people's minds because we start critiquing it. And I even see it in our art class at the high school level, with my daughter talking about some of the art. And unfortunately, it's the teacher saying that isn't, how it should be. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Isn't it a creative expression here? Well, why are you stifling that? Why are you, subjectively critiquing it? Because of the types of words that she's using to describe the critique has nothing to do, with the outcome. I don't understand that. So I think for us as leaders, we and when I say leaders, I'm talking about at home and business, and you talked about the customer experience, all of that is, we need to really ensure that we're not doing the stifling, right? So what are some of the things that we can do in order to prevent that from happening? We talked about listening. We talked about those things, but in the heat of the moment, in the day-to-day, and how we build upon it. Because I also say, when you start talking about growth and getting to the next level, you talked about goals. It's not what I set out there 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road. That's not it. No. It's what I do every single day all along the way.
Mm-hmm. You bet. It's one foot in front of the other. And the road, here's the thing, Jim, and I'll be honest with you. I'll level with you, right? I wrote a book called The Creator Mindset that has 92 tools to, become more creative. And I did not write a book called, Invest in Real Estate and Become a Millionaire by next week. I did not write a book called, Sales Pipeline Online, Become a Millionaire by next Tuesday. Those are the books that are selling millions of copies, the 4-Day Work Week. If there a 4-day work week, if there is, please put me on it. I've been working since I was 9 years old. And I work 12 hours a day if I'm lucky. Okay, so please hook me up. I want your listeners to call me and say, you know what, Nir, you can work for 3 days a week and then have the house in the Bahamas. Great, sign me up. The problem is that we are in a society and in a culture that values instant gratification, but there is no instant gratification. It takes a lot of dang hard work, and you have to read a lot. You have to read people who are thought leaders in a particular area. I read 2 books a week. I know you read like a lot more, but you need to read and see what's out there. There's a continual evolution of thought, and then you got to take that thought and you got to put one foot in front of the other and go to work. There is no, listen, don't buy my book if you want to get rich quick. It ain't going to happen. It's going to take, yes, you will make money. Yes, you will do way better, but it's going to take a long time. It's going to take a process, and you'll start to see little improvements at first and great improvements in the long run. But we are in love with instant gratification. We're in love with giving an award to somebody just because they're there. We are in love with a system that simply is not reflective of where the economy of today is going, where the economy of tomorrow will go, and how we fit into that whole thing. We need more creativity across the bandwidth, across the spectrum, in order to do better at business. But it is indeed it's a journey, not an arrival.
Okay, so I have to really go back, and you mentioned it a little bit, mentioning how you were within organizations and you were doing all the analytical spreadsheet stuff, and this.
That was horrible.
Well, but those are learning. That was learning time, right?
It's true.
Oh, and we talk about on the show times when we've had to get over the hump. Because hopefully they set us in a better direction than when we first started. So is there a time that you can remember where you've gotten over the hump that you can share with us?
Yeah, I do. I had a production company in Hollywood. We put out a movie that was bought by Universal, and literally it's embarrassing because it was a horrible failure story. But what I learned after that failure got me over the hump to every other business I've ever done. And what I learned was that you can't rest on one successful product or service. Not even for a minute can you do it today. In 50, 60 years ago, you could put out one product and do well for many, many years. But I put out a product and I had my team come to me and I didn't listen to them. I didn't actionate their items. They were like, we need to do this and we need to have this auxiliary product and this thread that is a commonality of the brand or product or service that would really help. And, all of these auxiliary services, I didn't listen. I was like, we just sold a movie to Universal. Money is just going to come in. And it did. It sure did for a while, but then it stopped and it never came back. And I had to lay off people who were depending on me for healthcare and for a job, and families that, people were paying their mortgage with our particular business and my business. And, I've let them down. What I learned and what got me over the hump is no matter what you do, no matter what product or service you're in, if you're not continually innovating, if you're not continually changing, you're dead in the water. I talk in the book about 3 very popular businesses, Toys R Us, Pan Am Airline, all of these great businesses that at one point were game changers. They were the leaders. They were the most innovative, the most creative. And then they sat on their butt and got stale, and they got complacent. And complacency is one of those things that if you allow your business or your product or your service or your career to get infected with, you are dead in the water. It's only a matter of time. You're sitting duck. But if you're able to get over the hump of complacency and understand that you continually need to change, then you will emerge victorious. I'm doing a keynote for a mortgage group, and the mortgage business right now, at the time of this recording, is doing incredibly well. It's like in a boom, right? And I'm literally centering the entire lecture about how not to get comfortable with what's going on today. And it's a hard sell. People, I ask, okay, who else is speaking at the multi-day conference? oh, everything is great. You're doing fantastic. And, keep going. Everything is great. Keep going. And that's not the truth. I'm sorry. It is not the case. You don't need to keep going when everything is great. You need to stop and say, okay, what are the auxiliary services that I can provide? How do I ensure from the next bump in the market that I will do well? What can I enact now in good times to prepare for the bad times? How much wood do I need to chop and put in the cellar so that we can get, through the winter? The winter is coming. The winter is coming. It's just, is it coming tomorrow? Is it coming in 2 years? Is it coming in 5 years? Nobody knows. But the hard times are coming in any business. And if we're not creative, we can get caught up in it. That's really the hump that I've learned to overcome.
Well, definitely I wish you the best on that keynote. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. Okay, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Nir, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help onward and upward faster. Nir Bashan, ready to hoedown?
Yeah, good. Let's go.
Right. So what is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I still struggle with listening. I still struggle with it. I still think that I have, really great ideas, and I'm embarrassed to say I need to listen to my staff more.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
To go for it and to do what you need to do regardless of what anybody thinks about what you're doing.
What is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
Best tools that help me lead in business or life, I would say creativity all the way.
And what would be one book you'd recommend to our Legion? It could be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to The Creator Mindset on your show notes page as well.
I really liked Emily Balcetis' book that came out 2 months ago called Clearer, Closer, Better. Wonderful book. She's a organizational psychologist at NYU.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus information from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Nir Bashan. Okay, Nir, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25. You can take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you and why?
I would take back the fact that it took me a long time to learn that sales are, the construct of sales is all about the relationship. I used to just burn and churn through contacts and leads and stuff like that. And now I take precious and valuable attention into every sales relationship that I have. And I take it beyond the sale. These are, once a client, always a client type relationship that I've developed. And those have been serving me incredibly well in life. That's what I would take back.
Nir, I had fun with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I am online. There's only 3 Nir Bashans in the entire world. I'm not the one uploading the Call of Duty clips. Who has time to play video games? And, I'm not the one who's, somebody decorating their closet with posts on Pinterest. That's not me. It's Nir, NIRBASHAN.com. I'd love to have you guys. We have an online community where you join. You can ask questions. It's moderated. No Viagra ads. I'd love to see you on there. I'd love to see you on there. It's a lot of fun. And let me know what you think.
Nir Bashan, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom and helping us all move onward and upward faster. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.